It's driving me out of my mind. That's why it's hard for me to find. Okay, that's it.
I wish I could beatbox because all I could do is just dance, but okay.
Most likely to be a director.
Most likely to be an engineer.
Most likely to be a journalist.
A doctor.
Astronaut.
A best-selling author.
Welcome to Most Likely To, a podcast presented by Donors Choose. We talk to some of the world's greatest minds to find out how they became who they are today. If you can see it, you can be it. Today's guest has been gracing the Broadway stage now for 2 decades. Jose Llana has been in The King and I, Rent, Putnam County Spelling Bee, and most recently was seen tearing up the dance floor as President Ferdinand Marcos in Here Lies Love. On today's episode, Jose will share the crazy story of how he landed his first lead role, why Filipinos take their karaoke so seriously, and you might even hear him sing a few bars for us. He is amazing, he is talented, and he is kind. On Most Likely To, it's Jose Llana. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, in Springfield, Virginia, but I was born in the Philippines. And I was born in Manila, and I moved and immigrated to America when I was 3 years old with my older sister, who was 4, and my parents.
Amazing. And, I'm a child of immigrants. You're a child of immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up in America as a child of immigrants, knowing that your parents probably sacrificed a lot to
Absolutely.
get you here?
I immigrated here from the Philippines, and just like a lot of other immigrant kids, my mom and dad, they sacrificed a lot for us to be here. And my sister and I were kind of your typical overachieving Asian American kids, very respectful. And my sister and I both got straight A's, but we were happy to, because I think we both appreciated how much our parents put into us. And we were really motivated to excel. My parents also wanted to make sure my sister and I were happy, and that we decided to do with our lives something that made us happy, which is a big deal. There was a pressure to go into engineering and to be doctors and lawyers, and my sister actually followed that route. She got a full ride to an engineering school, and then she went to MIT for grad school, and she became the star of the family. Like, she's the engineer now that everyone brags about. And I, as the younger brother, got to be the artist in the family and pursue theater and music. So I think the two of us are very happy that we play those roles in our family.
How lucky are you that you were the second child?
I'm
the second child, so I know. Yeah.
So much freedom. I get. My sister had all the rules, and I got to be like the artsy younger brother. And I say every day that if we were born in different order, I'd be the engineer and my sister would be singing, dancing.
No, oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Shout out to all the first kids that had to.
Exactly.
What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up, and how does that compare to what you're doing right now?
At first, I thought I wanted to be an architect, because I just like every other kid.
I did too.
Yeah, every other kid.
How funny.
Watch the Brady Bunch, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I wanna walk around with blueprints and design houses and actually I was really obsessed with buildings, and I would go to like downtown areas and look up the skyscrapers and go, wow, that's cool. Who designed that? My sister and I went to like geeky science camps, and but then somewhere in the middle of grade school, I joined choir, and I remember my first choir teacher in grade school pulled me out and gave me a solo, and it was the first time someone said, that's something special. Like, that's something you do that other people can't necessarily do. And the power of telling a kid that was the first thing that made me feel special. And I just found my niche. It was choir. And then I said, ooh, that made me feel good. I got, people applauded when I sang the solo, and I thought, I'll do that again. And so I stayed in choir and did choir all through grade school and middle school, and discovered theater and Broadway, and I found my tribe. And I think it's always important when I tell young kids in high school, like, look for your tribe, look for the people that make you feel like you're not a weirdo, because everyone feels like a weirdo once in a while. But when I walked into the choir room, and then I walked into the drum room especially, I found people who understood me and made me feel like I'm not weird. Like you can be weird in here with us, and we're all weirdos together.
Can I ask you something that I've been wondering? Why is it that and I don't hate to generalize, but why is it that so many Filipinos are amazing singers and performers? Is it something in the water?
You
Is it
know,
amazing cheekbones? Is it like, what is it like?
you
What
know,
is it that makes them?
I'll start with like kind of like the geeky answer, which is
Mm-hmm.
that I've actually read this paper in a medical magazine that talked that was a linguistic magazine. Like our language, Tagalog, the main language, has a lot of N's and G's, and it's very nasally, and it puts the language in the mask of your voice, of your face, which is a technical thing when it comes to singing, that it makes it easier to sing. But the bottom line is like I think every Filipino kid is born with a karaoke mic in their hand, and
Yes.
it's very
Yeah.
much a
Yeah.
part of the culture that everyone is expected to sing. Like, and
Huh.
if you read like business books about how to live in the corporate world, like in Japan, you hand your business card like this, and but in the advice for a corporate America and for the Philippines is you will inevitably be asked to sing karaoke, and do not say no, or you will be criticized
Look
for
down upon.
for
Yeah.
saying no. And it's so much a part of the culture, and like everyone sings,
Mm.
and then and it's also very competitive. Like if you get up to sing in a Filipino party and you're a little good, there will be five other people behind you trying to outdo what you sang. Um,
Oh,
and there's this
wow.
level of competitiveness. And I remember in my family reunions growing up as a kid, my uncles would hide the karaoke tapes of their songs so that no one could sing them.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
when it was your turn to sing, you're like, oh, where did that tape come from? Oh, here's my
Yeah.
song. Let me put that in.
Yeah.
But and I think it's a part of the culture. I think, um,
Yeah.
and it's a fun part. And I think which is why also too people take it very seriously, which is even more
Hmm.
of a compliment if a Filipino says that they think you sing well.
How horrible would it be though if you're the one Filipino relative that can't sing? You're like the outcast.
Everyone has that.
But
Everyone has that one relative. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but for all the kids out there listening, I mean, there's so many American singers of Filipino descent, like Bruno Mars and
yeah,
Olivia Rodrigo and Saweetie,
yeah,
who are all
fantastic.
Filipino.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's fast forward to your career as a singer.
Okay.
What was your first job ever? And looking back on it now, was there anything that you learned from that experience?
The first thing I had to do was convince my parents to let me go to music school instead of engineering school. And during my freshman year in college, I found out they were having auditions for The King and I for a Broadway revival. And the audition notice literally said, looking for a young man, baritone, teenager, to play teenager, Southeast Asian, to play Thai, and I'm Filipino. And it was one of those lucky things where I thought, this is me. Like I should go for this. I should go for this. But I could
Yeah.
not. But I wasn't a union member. I hadn't done anything. And the only audition I could go to was one that was uh, for people who had agents already, and it was like an appointment. And I
Mm.
went, and I expected to wait all day to maybe get in, and someone didn't show up for their time slot, and they kept calling out his name, Robert something, and raised my hand, and I walked in pretending to be this guy,
No way.
and and the guy, the casting director was like, looking at this guy's resume, his face, the photo was face down, so he didn't see that it wasn't me. And he looked at me and was like, do you know the song from the show? And I said, yes. I had just learned it the night before. And I sang the song. And he's like, okay, we're gonna have some callbacks later this summer. And I said to him, like, sir, I'm only a freshman in college. I'm 18 years old, and I'm just here for the experience. And please don't get me arrested. And he turns over the photo, and it's not me, obviously. And I he said, just give me your real resume, and he wrote my name down, and they called me back all summer, and a couple of months
Wow.
later I got my first job on Broadway, and it was the right place, the right time. And my lesson from that was that I had real courage to do that because I knew I had a timeline, and I knew that I only had so much time in New York, and I was lucky enough that show came around at the right place and the right time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I put in the work ethic where I learned the songs from the show so that if they asked me, I was ready to go. Um, and that was my first job. And so that was in 1996. I was 19 when we opened on Broadway, and that was my first job.
I'm curious because you said that you had this the King and I, which is a very specific role, like asking for a Southeast Asian player, is a lot of luck and being at the right place at the right time. How has your identity as, a gay Asian man impacted the types of roles that you've been offered, whether it's like main character, or not, or
Right.
what you haven't been offered? Like how has that impacted the roles you've
it's a
gotten?
really that's a very dense conversation to have. I think I've been working on Broadway since '96, so that's almost 30 years now, and I think just within the span of my career, the world has changed, and diversity has changed, and what they're allowed to say to people auditioning has changed. Like when I first started auditioning in the '90s, and even in the early 2000s, people would say to my face, "Oh, we're not seeing Asians today. You can come back tomorrow." Or, "Oh, they're not really considering not considering non-traditional for this job." That was the code word for non-white, was non-traditional. A lot of people who look like me got their first breaks doing Miss Saigon, doing King and I, and I can count them on one hand. You know what I mean? Those musicals, which is why I didn't have the opportunity to audition for a lot of shows because I was a darker skinned Filipino 6 foot guy, that I was technically right for, but like the director was only interested in seeing white guys for that job. And then I came out of closet when I was in high school, so I've been out my entire career. And I would even say the first half of my career, I wasn't closeted per se, but I didn't necessarily wear it on my sleeve because I wanted to be considered for straight roles, and leading man roles are typically straight, So, but I have to say that times have really changed. Like look at Eva Noblezada. She's playing Daisy in The Great Gatsby right now. Like that's incredible.
The whitest of white roles.
Do you know what I mean? And she's
Yeah.
Filipino, but she got her break doing Miss Saigon. You know what I mean? But I think even 30 years ago, a person who looked like her never would have been considered even if she won a Tony Award. Like Lea Salonga is a perfect example of someone who won a Tony Award in 1990, 91, 90, but they still wouldn't consider her for certain roles. You know what I mean? And so, but the times are changing. Have they changed 100%? No. I'm still not considered for certain roles, even though I've been working for 28 years on Broadway. But they're better now than they were 30 years ago, which is why it's so exciting when I talk to high school students and middle school students that they have people like Eva Noblezada, who is playing Daisy in Great Gatsby, and the world is seeing that, and it's opening the eyes of people to say, oh, Daisy can be Filipino.
That makes sense, and that's amazing that you've seen that evolution change. Can we back up just a second, and can you tell folks what is Broadway, and how would you describe to newbies what a musical is and why it's so appealing to watch?
Well, Broadway it's a geographical location. First of all, it's about 40 different theaters in New York City that define the commercial theater in New York. But Broadway is also like I grew up a theater geek, a Broadway geek, and it's everything from The Sound of Music to Oklahoma to Hamilton to Rent. I don't know. I consider myself a theater geek. Always have been, and it's a world that accepts everybody, and we tell stories about everybody, and people tend to break out and sing in song in the middle of sentences, and that's I think a magical world, and tap dancing is allowed anytime you want. And no, I mean, I think anyone who has ever seen a Broadway show, and particularly for myself, because I grew up, like I said, in DC, I saw a lot of touring companies go through the Kennedy Center and the National Theater, and I just fell in love. I kept every playbill and that I've ever had, and went home and religiously read every biography inside every playbill, and found out where people went to school, and was completely enraptured by the first time I saw a person of color on stage. I think I saw a touring company of Cats, and I couldn't tell on stage because they all had makeup on. But then I looked at the playbill. I was like, there are 3 Filipinos in the cast, and they were like all these people of color and cats, but they all have cats makeup
Yeah.
on, and I couldn't tell. But like I was obsessed with that when I was a kid, and now
Yeah.
I just spent 2.5 years touring The King and I around the country. Another production of The King and I. Very proud to
Awesome.
say that I took The King and I around the country, and especially to the Kennedy Center where I grew up. And for a lot of people, it was the first time they saw the King be played by an actual Asian American actor.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Versus a white person with like black hair dye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
knows Yul Brynner originated
Yeah.
it in the
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of movie stars who are not Asian have played the part.
Yeah.
So it just felt I was very proud that an Asian American
That's
man
so
was
amazing.
leading the show around the country. And Broadway is a mentality, but it's also, a lot of people say you try to, you work hard, you hopefully will make it on Broadway. But I always repeat that to sustain a productive and quote unquote successful life as a theater actor, it doesn't necessarily have to include Broadway. Like you can work, there's so many regional theaters that can sustain a great lifestyle for you. I have so many friends who maybe have done one Broadway show, but they pretty much the rest of their careers have been spent off Broadway or working in regional theaters, especially like in Chicago or DC, and even Los Angeles have great theater communities there.
That's great advice. Okay, I want to fast forward to more recently when you were in Fatboy Slim's musical Here Lies Love,
Okay.
which is such deeply relevant, personal like content probably for you. You played Ferdinand Marcos, like he was a dictator.
He's a dictator. Yeah, he was a bad guy.
Power hungry.
He was a bad man.
And he was responsible for, I don't know, thousands of Filipino deaths and
tens of thousands.
Just so much. So yeah. What was it like to not only play a villain at this level, but also to play someone who probably played a role in your life growing up?
Well, he's the reason we left the country. My family immigrated to America in 1979, which was kind of near the end of their reign. I think Here Lies Love, written by David Byrne, and I've been a part of this production since 2011. We started working on it then, and we did it off Broadway 10 years ago, and we finally brought it to Broadway last year. It was a very special project for me because I was very much involved in its creation, and the creators, David Byrne and Alex Timbers, our director, used my knowledge and my family background. Like I said, from the first day of rehearsal, I said, I have a lot. This is my life. This is my family's life. This is my relatives' lives. I can tell you our experience and what this show means to me. And I want to make sure we tell the right story, that we tell an accurate story about who these people were. The show was actually about Imelda Marcos. Like she was the main focus of it. And she was a celebrity. And she was this kind of bigger, larger than life figure that a lot of people, God, I had to say, they adored her because she was just so out there, but she was just as bad as her husband. Like they stole so much money from the country, and I think it's the show is about the cult of personality and why people follow these corrupt leaders and blindly let them do what they do. How did it feel playing Marcos? Someone has to play him, and I'd rather do it myself and be the villain and show people what he put my country through and the Philippines through. It was a very cathartic experience, and my mom and dad who came to the show, obviously, numerous times will tell you they had to sort of get over the fact that their son was playing the man who made them flee their country.
Yeah.
It was a very kind of intense situation, but their overall feeling was pride that we were telling the story and that people got to know a little bit more about Filipino history, so that it doesn't happen again. Because unfortunately, the Marcos's son is now in power. He, the current president of the Philippines is a Marcos. So
wow,
they're watching him and they're making sure that he doesn't do what his parents did.
Well, that's amazing, the power of storytelling, so that, like you said, so that history doesn't repeat itself.
Exactly.
And whether it's in the Philippines or here, that's a very, very powerful message.
Hi, this is Lucas Shen from New York City. I wanted to know, while you're performing on Broadway, it's a live show, so anything can happen. What is the craziest thing that ever happened while you were performing live on stage?
I did a show called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
I saw it.
It
It
was
was
a
amazing.
fun
You
show.
you were amazing.
And
Yeah.
actually, very proud to say that technically my character, Chip Tolentino, in that I helped create, I got to name him. Tolentino is a family name.
Oh
And
wow.
so technically, Chip Tolentino is the first original Filipino American character in a Broadway show, which makes me
Oh,
feel
that's
really good.
amazing.
Which makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
Like I get messages all the time via social media from kids doing spelling bee in high school, in middle school, in grade school, even saying, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I'm playing Chip Tolentino." And the vast majority of them are boys of color. Do you know what I mean? Like they're either
Oh, that's
Filipino or they're
amazing.
Asian
Yeah.
American, African American, Latino. Like I love that I've hopefully helped create a character that, as schools do it and colleges do it, all the guys who look like me can get in the front of the line and audition for it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of improvisation, and but sometimes things go wrong, and so because we have spellers, volunteers from the audience go on, but there was this one scene once where um, I'm fighting with Barfay about peanuts, and I throw a bag of peanut M&Ms at him, and they normally just hit him and falls to the ground. But one show I hit him and the bag burst open and about 25 peanut M&Ms explode all over the stage. And all like 9 cast members look at it, look at each other, and without even thinking,
Just
all of us jumped down and started eating the M&Ms. And it
That's
became a
amazing.
bit, and it was hilarious, and we all got up and like our mouths were full of M&Ms, and it was magical. It was magical, and the audience like ate it up, and they thought it was planned.
Probably could not happen this day and age with all the
Peanut
peanut
allergies.
allergies and everything. But that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to do a lightning round right now. So I'm going to
Okay.
say something and then just say the first thing that comes to mind. So, favorite Filipino dish?
Lumpia.
They're delicious. Daily habit?
I exercise.
That's a great one.
Okay.
That's a great one. Okay, favorite scene you've ever performed?
The Shall We Dance polka in The King and I.
Ooh, that's iconic. Iconic. Okay.
Yeah.
Go to karaoke song after you've just elaborated on all the karaoke and when you should use it. But what's like your go-to karaoke song?
Okay, there's two. It's either George Michael's Freedom 90 or
Mm-hmm.
Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison, probably. And
Never
tells
trust
you
a big button and smile.
never trust a big button to smile. That tells you exactly how old I am. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah, you could kind of triangulate like exactly.
Exactly. Usually, like, what were you
Um,
singing eighth grade in high school or first year of high school?
Yeah. Could you give us a couple lines of either of those songs?
um, it's driving me out of my mind. That's why it's hard for me to find. Okay, that's it.
I wish I could beatbox because all I could do is just dance. But okay. How about favorite cast? If you can reveal
Favorite
that.
cast? Oh,
Yes.
the cast that I've been closest to and still close to is my spelling bee cast. There's something really magical about those individuals, and many of them have gone on to become very famous, like Jesse Tyler Ferguson. He was on Modern Family, and Dan Fogler went on to the Harry Potter films, and so
Yeah.
I think we all met each other. We're all the same age, around the same age, just within a year or two apart of each other, and we all met each other at a point in our careers where we all just became really close friends, and we were all a part of this show that was very under I don't want to say underrated, but like they didn't expect the show to hit as big as it did, and we all kind of exploded with it, and it was so much fun, and the show was such a special time. We all have we still have a running text thread. The show is almost 20 years old now, and whenever someone in that company does something that we're all proud of, like we all send a text out to everybody, and it's still
Wow.
pretty close. And so I think there's something really special about my spelling bee cast.
That sounds so special. So I saw in an interview with Backstage, you were asked, what advice would you give your younger self? That's a question I always ask. What advice would you give? And your response was you'd tell yourself to relax and you'd reassure yourself that you have time. So a lot of students that we work with are often coping with stress and anxiety. What are some specific ways you would recommend that they relax and enjoy this period in their lives when they're feeling, uncertain about their future paths and the world and all of that?
You know what something that I didn't realize until I was an adult is that the reality of life is that failure is a part of life, and you can always correct and you can always start over. You can always change paths. You know what I mean? And I think if I was taught that more, if I knew that more as a younger person, I would have relaxed more. I think what I would go tell my younger self is make the choices you want to make and go for anything you want to go for. But if it doesn't work out, there's time to do other stuff. There's time to shift focus and go that direction or go that direction. And you're not going to be a failure if you do that. And I think it ties into that immigrant thing too, where my sister and I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we wanted to be successful to make our parents proud, and which all kids hope, most kids want to do. And I think I would have not put so much pressure on myself. And knowing that and repeated to myself that all my parents wanted was for my sister and me to be happy. And whether or not that meant a Broadway show or pursuing engineering or neither, and do something else, I think my parents would have been happy whatever I decided to do.
That was Broadway actor Jose Llana. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Make sure to click the follow button on your podcast app so you never miss a new episode. We are at Most Likely To Show on YouTube and at mostlikely2.show on Instagram and TikTok. Tag us in your posts about the show. This show is about exploring the journeys of the people you care about, so let us know who you're interested in hearing from by sending in your request at podcast@donorschoose.org or DM us on Instagram